Our next speaker has a PhD in computational physics along with a professional law degree. He has been a practitioner in the field of law, IT-enabled education, and IT implementation. Drawing upon his experience in world-class international institutions and having taught in various modes of face-to-face, distance learning, and technology-enhanced training, he is now exploring the nature of institutions which will be successors to the IITs and IIMs. He has been the Pro-Vice Chancellor at the Indira Gandhi National Open University, IGNOU, and on the faculty at IIT Kanpur, at the MLNR Engineering College, and as faculty and visiting professor at the University of Western Ontario, Canada. He has also been a visiting scientist to research centers in Italy, England, Germany, and Sweden, and has delivered international lectures with about 80 published papers to his credit. He has been a member of Board of Governors at IIT Delhi, one-man committee to create the project report and legislation for Delhi IT-enabled Open University. He has been the advisor to the Delhi government on Asian Network of Major Cities project being pursued in association with the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our privilege to have him on the advisory board of the Image Management Professionals Association. Please put your hands together for Professor Pant.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me at the back? So when I heard her saying he has done a PhD in computational physics, this, and I was wondering, you must already know, what the hell is he doing here? And I think the important and interesting point is, and Rakesh said this very early in the morning, I'm here to learn about this. And Judith did an excellent exposition. And so you might say, so why should we hear a learner? The point is that when you look at things in different perspectives, you can see many different things. And while I was talking to people before the event, people said, so will you be talking about this or will you be talking about that? I told them that I don't make prepared speeches. I respond to what's happening and I've come here to learn it, and in some sense I'm going to do that. I don't use a PowerPoint also because I say power corrupts a politician and PowerPoint corrupts the academic. So I'm an academic, I don't want to use PowerPoint. My biggest problem is that you are thinking of food and I want to give you food for thought. I don't know whether these two things can work together because you are stylists, and on a style scale, whether thinking for food and food for thought can mix is an important issue, but let's attempt it in any way. I want to first react to what Judith said. Her husband is a physicist and probably scares her by the term rocket science. Rocket science is actually the very simplest science in the world. All you have to do is to take a particle, give it a speed of more than 7 kilometers per second, and it will go on its own. You have to do nothing to it, right? And ask anybody who rides a motorbike, etc., achieving a speed. The rest is all detail. The principle is very. But try to look at this. Look at human beings. You saw 39 different kinds of this, that, and so on. It's a much more complex field. Because it is a more complex field, you have a bright future. And you will see, and one of the things that I found some kind of apprehension and this thing, and Rakesh, of course, is supremely confident and is a visionary and you can see it. And I want to just build from analogies because very often, unless we give an analogy, things don't get clear. I've also been a practicing lawyer. You may have the best thing, but you have to give a precedent, a quotation, Supreme Court said this, or Lord Denning said this, then people agree. So let me give you two analogies of recent times, which will give you confidence that you are at the right place and with the right field. And whether it is clear to you or not, this is going to be the future. It may change its name from image consulting to something else. But what we are talking about is, I think, very, very interesting and important. Let me get you to the IT field. We all talk about IT and India's glory in IT, and also the great heroes of the world are who? They are Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, the Google guys, and so on. Now, you know this IT is all less than a 50-year-old kind of a phenomenon. I used to work in TIFR Bombay on a computer in the 1970s. That was CDC 3600, the only computer available here. And we used to get a glorious 15 minutes of computer time per month. A Professor PVS Rao actually wrote as late as the 70s an article in a serious journal of Computer Society of India, and I hope IMPA will never write any such thing. He said all this nonsense about everybody using computers is all bakwas. Anybody who doesn't have a degree in mathematics, does not know how to solve a differential equation, has no business with computers. And he is a very reputed professor and so on. This is what he actually believed. So the thing which Rakesh said, that first people will ridicule you, say, what is this, and so on and so forth. You're all used to the idea of management. You talk about corporates, this, that. When did the manager's role become important? Rakesh comes from a business family. Manager was a glorified name to a, what we call a general purpose clerk. And he was called a manager. And our first encounters with the word manager was when you went to a movie hall, the person who controlled the ticket, etc., was called the manager. Management became respectable in India after the IIMs came in 1960. Calcutta was the first one. And of course, about 100 years ago, US had its Harvard and so on and so forth. But when did management become accepted? When did a person who owned a business decided that somebody else is better doing it? This is when the management professional established that the visible contribution of the manager is more important than the invisible hand of the market. Adam Smith had made that expression very famous, invisible hand of the market. And when you saw that the managers, so if the market is going down and the manager is pushing up sales, you see that this is the role of the manager. And I think the point about image consulting, and as I said, by whatever name we will call it in future, is that given a set of intrinsic things, how do you make the best of it? I'll draw an analogy with the profession of law. And I'm saying this, why I'm saying this, because we are getting into creating a new profession. And you have to understand. Now you look at the profession of law, and I've been a lawyer for 7 years, so I know what it is about. Profession of law is very funny. A lawyer has no control on the legislation that is passed by parliament. He has no control over what is the law of the land that the judges decide, so he has no thing on the decision. You go and do something, and then come to the lawyer, I have done this, now please save me, or please help me, or get me the best of my right. I signed this contract, but this is not what I really want, and so on and so forth. So looking at whatever is the situation, from a legal perspective, he tries to do the best for you. A good business manager, leader, as Rakesh said, will tell you about how to get the best out of a given situation. And I think the purpose of image consulting is to say that in the circumstances you are, how do you get the world to know about who you are? And this is very, very interesting and important, and from times immemorial. And since the presentation by Rakesh began with Purva's poem, so obviously it's clear that a lot of people have interest in English. In Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 3, Polonius tells Laertes about a certain amount of advice. So he says, give all thy ear, but few thy voice. But there it says very interestingly that expensive thy habit as thy purse can buy, rich but not gaudy. And this is very interesting. This is what Judith said. You don't want to look like a hooker or whatever. So the point is that this was said by in Shakespeare's this thing. And it says, apparel oft proclaims the man. So when you are going to talk about image consulting and image being important and apparel being important, Shakespeare said this long ago. And it's very, very interesting because Shakespeare had lots of such things. You talked about people's looks. In Julius Caesar says, let me have men around me that are fat, for yonder Cassius has a lean and hungry look. Such men are dangerous. He thinks much and so on. So Shakespeare was, of course, extremely politically incorrect. In today's time, I think the Bombay police would have arrested him because he said, frailty, thy name is woman. I mean, can you imagine all the women's group with Brinda Karat and her this thing, allow something like frailty, thy name is woman to get on, and so on. So that's the kind of thing that is there. So but what I'm trying to say is from times immemorial, people have looked at that. Why is this going to become more important? And this is going to become more important because of two things, and I have to push my technology agenda somewhere or the other, it is because of two things which have happened recently. One is, and this is one of my favorite quotes which Rakesh referred to, and I say this to all young students, and especially students who are good in science and maths and think that they are the heroes of the future, I let them down. I said, you have no future. You have no future, because if you can only do what you have been taught how to do, and probably certified for it, and given 100 out of 100 by the CBSE board, it will be done by a piece of software. Who's going to ask you to solve a quadratic equation? Who's going to ask you to invert a matrix? Who's going to ask you to do anything? It will all be done by a piece of software. So you're very good, you can do it, the others are not able to do it, so you're being clapped today. But you have absolutely no future, and they're extremely disappointed. But the fact of the matter is, and lots of people in America are writing about it, about the unemployment and so on, we have a very funny, abrupt change that is coming up. Our generation was all brought up into thinking physics, chemistry, maths is the right thing to do. So if you did this, you could go to the IAS, you could go to engineering, Indian Forest Service, banking service, anything. If you look at my generation, and for a few decades before, after, it's all physics, chemistry, maths. It's absolutely irrelevant, because nobody is going to ask a human being other than a frontline researcher doing the Large Hadron Collider about his knowledge of physics. He will all get it from the computer, from a piece of software.